on the district website so that folks will have access to that and be able to get the answers to their questions here as well. But I think we are at a point here where I can go ahead and start sharing my screen and show you what we're going to be working on tonight. All right, so yeah, tonight we're going to start talking about this ninth grade pathway presentation and how we're going to be choosing our pathways for next year. And this is going to look a little bit different than what our ninth graders have done in the past. So I'm glad that you guys could all be here tonight to get this information as we go through it. Today is January 12th. I'm going to start with just kind of a general pathway overview. We're going to talk about what all the pathways are here in the district. At this point in time, we actually have 13 different pathways. So we will kind of give you an idea about what all of those are. And I'm going to go through each pathway individually. So you can kind of get a look at depending on what your freshman chooses, what some of their courses would look like over the next 3 years. So hopefully that will help you as you're making a decision here on which pathway is going to be the best fit for you and your student. And then we'll go through a scheduling timeline. We'll talk you through exactly what those dates are going to be, the due dates for when we need to get things in as we are working through scheduling. Anytime we start one of these meetings, we always want to go over the mission and vision here for our district. And I highlighted the part that I think is really going to be the most important part about what we're talking tonight. So we're going to be really focusing in on student learning. So under that, it says enable students to take ownership of their learning and achieve their full potential through challenging, engaging, and relevant learning experiences. And that's really what these pathways are about, is developing challenging, engaging, and relevant learning experiences. It's going to be really, really important for our freshmen to think critically about what it is that they're really interested in and make a good choice about what pathway it is that they want to explore. Doesn't mean that they won't be able to explore other pathways and other options. They will have some opportunities for that as well. We'll talk about that as we go through. But it's really important that they think about where it is that they see themselves potentially going in the future, make a good choice here on which pathway they want to go to. So a few things to understand about pathways. So based on the recommendations from the District Committee for High School Realignment, students are now selecting pathways rather than academies for the 22-23 school year. So if you remember last year, we had a group of students and parents, administrators, teachers, who all came together to work on high school realignment. And we took a look at some of the things that were working really well with our academies and some of the things where we could all see that there were deficiencies and we needed to make some changes. And so what you're going to see tonight is the implementation of some of those changes that this committee made. The start of that is you're not choosing an academy anymore. You're actually going to be choosing a pathway instead. Each year, we're going to use our enrollment numbers for each pathway and available space to determine the location of each set of the pathways. What that means is that our pathways now can move. All right, so just because the digital pathway is currently at the Summit campus does not mean that it can't move to Livingston. This is determined by enrollment in space. Now keep in mind, we understand that we want to have as much stability for our teachers and our students as we possibly can. Our goal isn't to move pathways, but I need to make sure everyone understands that we may, if we have numbers issues where we have to move those around, okay? So it's really imperative this year that our students are choosing a pathway that is of interest to them and not just trying to select a campus. Because again, just because you select a pathway that has traditionally been located on one campus doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to still be on that campus next year. So you really want to make sure you've got the right pathway for your student. We will continue to have shuttles during the school day to remain flexible for student coursework. So we do have students that go back and forth. We will try and offer courses during those E&I spaces so that if there's a course that's only offered on one campus or the other, we can shuttle students back and forth and make sure they have access to those courses as well. So the idea here with this realignment is really to improve access for all of our students, so they all have an opportunity to get access to those courses that they are interested in. The available pathways that we have, and like I said, I'm going to go through more detail on each of these pathways, but this is kind of the idea where we're at. So we have an agriculture and food science pathway, we have an allied health pathway, business, finance, and marketing pathway, criminology, design, digital, which is different than digital media. And we'll talk about what's different between those two here as we go. Early childhood education, energy, fine art, performance and production. One of the new things that we have this year that I think people are going to be really excited about is an exploration pathway, where you can actually take a sampling of a couple different pathways as part of that. And we still have our College Credit Plus pathway. And that pathway we're going to talk about a little bit as we get to the end. But the big thing with that one is if a student chooses to be completely off campus, they can basically build their own pathway, right? So they can take these College Credit Plus classes, any of the public schools here in the state of Ohio. The district pays for the tuition and the books, which is awesome. And students can go and be off campus. That doesn't usually impact a whole lot of our sophomores. So this year's freshmen, next year's sophomores, because most of them can't drive, right? So this is usually an option that we're looking at for our juniors and seniors, but we'll touch on it tonight just to let you know that that's an option that students can look at in the future. This is kind of a key because you're going to see some of these educational jargon terms as we go along tonight. And I didn't want to just keep on throwing these different letters out and have people not understand what they are. So when you see a course that is delineated with that CTE, that means that that's a career and technical education course. So for those courses, we do get our curriculum that is designated by the Ohio Department of Education, very specific things that we're teaching in those courses. Project Lead the Way, if you see a PLTW, again, that is different curriculum that we are using from the Project Lead the Way group. If you see something that's delineated with an AP, that is advanced placement, that curriculum comes to us from the College Board. If you see something that is CSCC, that means that that is a Columbus State Community College class. So again, we've got some things that people have to test into and all that sort of thing, but you can earn college credit for those as well as high school credit. And then you'll see some that are delineated with that COTC, which is Central Ohio Technical College, another one of our partners that we work with, where you can earn college credit as well as high school credit when you're taking those courses. So you'll see those as we go through tonight, but there's kind of a key for you in case you need to go back and check and say, what was he talking about? Why does that say CTE? You'll see these things to help you out with that. Okay, so this is our first slide, our first pathway that we're going to go through. And we're just going to go through these pathways in alphabetical order. I'm going to go into a lot of detail on this slide, and you're going to see that each of the slides after this are actually fairly similar. So I'll go into less detail on each of those. Okay, so that we're just, I don't have to repeat myself on each one. So what you're looking at right now, hopefully tonight, everybody who is here has a freshman, and you're looking at those sophomore year courses. So if you choose this agriculture food science pathway in the sophomore year, you're going to have an American history choice. All right. All sophomores take American history. You can choose to take the enriched American history, the regular American history, or you can choose to take the Columbus State American history. It's history 1151, I believe, 1151 or 1152. I'll look at that in a second. But you'll have a choice between those, whether you want to take the college version of it or the high school version of it. Biology is going to be the same thing. So you have the choice of taking the traditional biology that we are more familiar with for a high school student, or they can choose to take the Columbus State biology. When they choose English, they may be taking English 10, English 11, English 12. They may be taking Comp 1. They may be taking Comp 2. They may choose to take an AP course for English. So they'll have some English choices to make there. When they go to make their math choice, same idea, right? They might be taking Integrated Math 1, Integrated Math 2. They may choose to go on and take Financial Algebra. They may choose to go on and take Pre-Calc. They may choose to go on and take AP Calc. They may choose to take one of our college courses. Any of those things is really a possibility. But you'll be able to see what those choices are when you start to take a look at the actual scheduling documents. What I want to draw your attention to is this one right here. Okay, so this is our pathway specific elective, agriculture, food, and natural resources. So if your student chooses this pathway, that is one of the electives that they are required to take as a part of this pathway. Then they'll have room in their schedule for 2 electives. I need our parents and our teachers, quite honestly, and our administrators to start thinking about that term elective a little bit differently than maybe what you have in the past, okay? I think traditionally we thought of electives as being music, foreign language, PE, health, courses like that. Those courses still exist, and you can fill your elective with music, foreign language, PE, health. That's all great. The other thing that you can do with those electives, though, is you can start to choose electives out of other pathways. So even if I am sitting in the agriculture and food science pathway, I may choose to take an elective that comes out of the business pathway because I have an interest there too. I may choose to take a course out of the fine art pathway because I have an interest there too. So you'll have those options as part of those electives that you'll be able to choose as you go in. Sorry, I got a couple people online in here. Then you'll look at that junior year, okay? And again, the junior year, you're gonna see that some of these things are pretty similar. Government choice. So again, that same idea, a student can take the traditional high school government, they can take AP government, or they can take political science 1100. So they'll have a choice their junior year about what that government is. Every pathway that you see, you're gonna see that government choice as part of that 11th grade year. They'll have an English choice. Same thing we just talked about, same choices, right? English 11, English 12, Comp 1, Comp 2, AP, all those will be choices for them. Same math choices. We do have chemistry slated in the junior year and physics slated in the senior year, all right? We want our students to be taking those advanced sciences so that they are all in line for an honors diploma. That does not mean that every one of our students is going to earn an honors diploma. We recognize that fact and we understand that. When you meet with your counselor to actually start to turn in your scheduling forms, if you don't want to take chemistry your junior year, we can look at a different science for you. This is just what we're recommending as a chemistry and a physics as you go forward there. So again, you'll see that the pathway specific course here is science and technology of food. And as you get into that senior year, you've got physics, your English choice, your math choice. All of our pathways, you'll see an internship for the senior year and a capstone. Then we have application of food science here and another elective that you can choose to take that senior year. Okay. So again, these slides are going to be pretty similar as we go year to year or pathway to pathway, but wanted to make sure that we're addressing that. The ag science and foods, the ag and food science pathway is really good for students who are interested in careers in farming, restaurant management, and food preparation. So again, if your student is interested in careers in that area, this would potentially be a really good pathway for them. The next one that we're going to look at then is our allied health pathway. Okay, again, I'm not going to go back over those things that are similar, but you'll notice the American history, biology, English, math, government, English, math, chemistry, English, math, all those things are going to be pretty similar. I'm going to stop saying it after this slide, I promise. So again, if your student chooses the allied health pathway, the elective that's going to be specific for them next year is principles of biomedical science. Then their junior year, they have human body systems. Their senior year, they have biomedical innovations and medical interventions. Again, our allied health pathway is good for students who are interested in careers in medicine. We're going to find coursework and experiences that give them insight into these career fields. So we're talking doctors, nurses, occupational therapists, physical therapists, exercise physiologists, kind of any of those careers that you can imagine in the medical field. This is going to kind of give them a base for how they can start to get into those courses and see if this is something they really enjoy. The business, finance, and marketing pathway, again, if your student chooses this, we've got a lot of CTE courses that are aligned with this one. That sophomore year, they've got business foundations and business applications. Going into the junior year, you're looking at marketing principles and fundamentals of business and administrative services. And then their senior year, they've got marketing principles 2 and a business and administrative capstone. I think what's really cool about this one, obviously we're looking at careers in business, finance, and marketing. But next year, we are planning on having the school store being open again. And students that are a part of this pathway will be able to be a part of that school store and to be a part of DECA. So those are things that we used to have at the high school level that have kind of gone away for one reason or another over the last few years. But we are bringing those back, and it should be awesome for next year. We have a criminology pathway. So I think this is one of those that we've done a lot of revamping of over the course of the last year. So you'll notice that the specific courses here for that sophomore year are psych and soc. We'll also have a restorative practices and personal bias. In the junior year, you're looking at a forensic science class, and then criminology and social deviance. In the senior year, we've got stats as the math course that we're going to ask people to take, and then a constitutional law class. And then we're looking for that capstone to be able to get students out to law firms, courthouses, social work, any of those kind of positions. So again, our criminology pathway is introducing students to careers in law enforcement and the legal professions, and hopefully we'll give them some experiences and some courses that will help them decide if that's a good fit for them. The design pathway, a lot of times this is also referred to as our engineering pathway. So for students who are really interested in careers in engineering, this is a good one for them. The sophomore year, oops, sorry about that. The sophomore year, students take CAD, which is computer assisted design, where they'll work in the fab lab. Their junior year, they have principles of engineering as the course that goes along with it. And then their senior year, they have computer integrated manufacturing and digital electronics. So again, this one has a lot of those project lead the way courses that are associated with it. And it also has a lot of articulated Columbus State credit. What that means is if they take these courses, the POE, the computer integrated manufacturing and the digital electronics, that as soon as they apply to be a student at Columbus State, these classes then also get added to their Columbus State transcript, all right? That transcript does transfer with them. So if a student starts off, let's say that they take Comp 1 their senior year, they're already a Columbus State student, so we can go ahead and start putting these engineering classes onto their transcript right now. And then if they were to transfer to Ohio State, Ohio University, even if they went to Mrs. Leonard's alma mater, Bowling Green, those courses will still be able to transfer with them when they go. So again, that design pathway has a lot of cool opportunities for students there. Our digital pathway is our computer science pathway. So this is going to be really good for students who are interested in careers in computer science, the IT field in particular. If they do this one their sophomore year, they'll be taking a couple of classes here with COTC. It's CIT 100 and Business 125. Their junior year, they take 4 more. Their senior year, they take 4 more. Students who matriculate all the way through this pathway actually finish up with 10 different COTC courses. It leaves them 1.5 classes short of having their associate's degree. So for students who want to finish up with their associate's degree, this might be a really good opportunity for them. They can take those other 1.5 courses over the course of a summer and actually graduate with an associate's degree in computer science. So a really cool opportunity for students there. Next one is our digital media design pathway. Now, I will tell you, I feel like our naming conventions on this were not great. We've got a digital pathway and then a digital media design pathway, and we're probably gonna have to rethink how we name those. But this one we're gonna call DMD for short, okay? The DMD pathway is really for students who are interested in digital marketing, all right? So they do still work a lot on computers and designing, but there's a lot more art that is going to go into this piece as they're developing marketing materials that would go into a business, all right? Again, just a huge growing field, a huge amount of demand, especially here in Central Ohio, for careers in this digital media field. So I think a really good one for our students. If your student chooses to take this as a sophomore, they have an Intro to DMD course and a DMD 100 course. Those are both CCP courses that are offered through COTC. Their junior year, then they have a couple more of those DMD courses as they're working their way through some of these COTC things. And then their senior year, they have a few more. All in all, they have 8 total COTC classes in this pathway. So again, one of those pathways that if you start and finish this one and you go all the way through in this, you actually wind up with quite a few college credits, almost having that associate's, that 2-year degree done. And it's very possible to finish it if you do a little bit of extra work outside of class or in the summers. Our early childhood education pathway, we are partnering with Columbus State for this one. So again, this is for those students who may be interested in a career in education. When you finish this one, you actually earn a credential that allows students to work in most early childhood educational settings. What that means is if your student graduates after their senior year and they would like to go work like in a preschool where we always need folks, they already have that certification to be able to go in there and be able to start working there. Even if they are going on to college after that and they want to continue with an education degree, this is a great opportunity for them to be able to working on the preschool that's on their campus while they are working their way through college. So a really cool way to do that. That sophomore year, there's an early childhood curriculum that we do with Columbus State. During the junior year, there's an SEL curriculum. And during the senior year, they have that intro to CDA that earns them that CDA credential that allows them to be able to go off and work in those early childhood centers. Our energy pathway is really focused in on careers in environmental science and energy production. So again, when you take a look at this one, the courses that you'll see that are unique here is that we do have our students take chemistry their sophomore year. So again, if your student decides to take this particular pathway, they'd be doubling up on science. They'd have biology and chemistry that sophomore year. One of the things that you'll see that's a little bit different in this pathway, in years past, this pathway was really focused heavily on some different AP courses. We were starting to feel that some of our students were shying away from this because of that heavy AP course load. So we've got some options now on it, okay? So if your student chooses to do energy pathway when they become a junior, they could potentially take AP chemistry, or they can take this applications of energy to drone science. They'll also have a choice of either AP biology or plant science and horticulture. Their senior year, it's AP human geography or environmental anthropology. And then they also have the AP environmental science or ecology and wildlife management. Yes, you can mix and match those. You could take AP Chem and plant science and horticulture. We'll work with your student on all those sort of things, making sure that they are taking the courses that fit best for them in that particular pathway. Our fine art pathway is our next one that we'll take a look at. The fine art pathway is really going to be focused on students who really want to explore the artistic side. We're going to be looking at drawing, painting, sculpting. This is a great pathway for the students who are trying to develop their portfolio, right? So if they're thinking about doing art at the college level, they may be developing that portfolio. If they're thinking about just applying to a business and need to develop their portfolio, this is a great pathway for them. The specific courses there are Art 2, Art 3, and Art 4, along with we'll have specific internships and capstones that will fall in line with that fine art pathway. The performance and production pathway is going to be focused on careers that are going to be on stage and screen. Okay, so those students who are interested in acting, being on TV, being in movies, or possibly even working behind the scenes, right? In the stage construction, the development, all those sort of things, this is a good pathway for them. In that sophomore year, they will be taking Performing Arts Primer and Intro to Movement and Choreography. In their junior year, it's Stage Construction and Design, along with Musical Theater. And then in their senior year, we've got Musical Engineering and the Arts and Communication capstone. So each of those would be unique to that particular pathway. This is what our exploration pathway looks like. Okay, so what you'll notice is we still have all of those similar choices, and the core classes are going to be very much the same, but we don't have any specific pathway electives that a student would be required to take. So your student could choose to take electives from any of the pathways that are on that particular campus, all right? The only drawback here to the exploration pathway, and I want to make sure everyone understands this, is that if you do choose the exploration pathway, those will be the first students that we kind of place onto a campus depending on room, all right? So if we look at one campus, let's say that we look at Livingston and we find that we are overfilled at Livingston, then we would put our exploration pathway students on the Summit campus. At that point, then you'd still have any of those electives that are available on the Summit campus to choose from, or vice versa, right? We may find it the other way, but I just need everyone to understand, if you choose that pathway, I think it's great. You get to experience a lot of different things and check out a lot of different pathways, but your campus is really then determined based on where we have the most room at. Now that could be for any of these pathways, right? Like I said, if we have to move a pathway, we would, but we're going to work with these exploration pathway students first. Our scheduling timeline. Okay, so this week we are going through each of these family informational meetings. So last night we did our 10th and 11th graders. Tonight we've got all of our 9th graders. Tomorrow night we'll be hitting all of our 8th graders. So we'll be able to go through and meet with each of these different grade levels and make sure everyone gets the same information. Our freshmen are going to be a little bit unique. You're going to get something that the rest of the grade levels are not going to get. So you're going to receive a pathway selection survey tomorrow. I am working on figuring out how to distribute this effectively. I'm still not great with Google Forms, I'm not going to lie. It's one of those areas of growth for me, but I think we've got our form ready to go. I'm going to work on getting that out and making sure that everybody has that tomorrow, okay? On that, all you're going to do is just select your pathway, all right? You are not going to be choosing any of your coursework yet, any of those sort of things. You're just going to check off which pathway it is that you want for your student. That's it. Should take you 30 seconds if you know which one it is that you want. These surveys are going to be due no later than 6 p.m. on January 19th, okay? That is next Wednesday. So you're going to have about a week to get all of these things in, but it has to be turned in by that time on January 19th. Any of our freshmen that have not submitted their survey by the deadline are going to be placed into that exploratory pathway because they haven't chosen one yet, okay? Now, I will tell you, I have lived and worked in Reynoldsburg for a long time. I love this place. It's been very good to me and my family. But I will tell you, I've heard a lot of times when a district leader will come on and say that there's a deadline, and it's really not a deadline. We accept things late. We do all those sort of things, right? It happens. I know it. I get frustrated. I know you get frustrated with it. What I'm telling you is that this is a hard and fast deadline. In order for us to get our scheduling done and completed in the timeline that we're looking at, we've got to have these things in by January 19th. So I cannot stress that enough to you. January 19th is a hard deadline. Please have it in by then so we can get every student what it is that they want. Once we get those in, we will be able then to look at numbers, assign our pathways to the correct campus, and then families are going to receive course request documents via email on Monday, January 24th. Okay, so that'll give us about a week to get all those things out, make sure that we've got everybody assigned to the right spots, and get those into everybody's hands. Once you get those course request documents, that will have on it all the electives that are available to you. That's where you'll be able to start working with your student to go through and choose the right courses. What math class is it? What elective class is it? All those sort of things. So you'll have from 124 through 128 to complete those course request documents at home with your student. You work on that. I am sure that you will have questions. As those questions come up, you can contact myself, Mr. Ragland, Mr. Bayless, Mrs. Carter, any of our counselors. We will be happy to help you with getting those things filled out. Starting at the end of January, January 31st, our counselors are going to start going out to English classes to start getting these course request forms and uploading them into PowerSchool. So they will sit down with your student. Your student will actually be the one typing everything into PowerSchool and uploading them, but there will be a counselor working with them to say, you know, I think this is a good course for you, but did you consider this? And we'll help out with all those things and make sure that we're getting everybody into the right things, okay? The idea is that if we can get all these things loaded into PowerSchool, we should be able to start building a master schedule and getting everybody scheduled. And God willing, with any luck this year, we will have everybody's schedule in their hands before we leave for the summer, okay? So that's our goal. I can't promise you that. Obviously, things come up. Well, I think we've all learned over the last 2 years with this pandemic. It's really tough to promise anything right now. But that is our goal. That's what we're going to work toward. And I think we can do a better job with the scheduling process than probably what we have done in the past. The scheduling documents, when you get those, you're going to be, the scheduling request forms are specific to the pathway that a student is choosing. So we will only send you the ones that are specific to your student. So if you chose the ag and food science pathway, you will get a course request document that is specific to the ag and food science pathway. Families should only fill out the course request form for the pathway that they have chosen. You don't need to fill out any of the others. Just fill out one, stick it in a folder, stick it in your kid's backpack, so that on the day we can get to them, we will get to them. I know I got some questions last night about, well, what if my kid doesn't have an English class, or what if my kid is virtual right now? So once we kind of go through and we've worked through all the English classes, we'll be able to run a report of which students we don't have a course request from. And at that point, our counselors will go out and we'll hunt your kid down, whether they're virtual or in another class. We'll grab them. We'll make sure that we get all their information. Okay. Okay. At this point, I think that we are ready to start taking some questions. So what I'm going to ask again is just go ahead and put these questions into the chat, and I will do my best to answer these things here as we go through. So the first question I've got here is, so is there no option for just a basic class pathway? There is an option for that. That would be that exploratory pathway. That way they're not picking any careers. They can go in there and start taking a look at any of those pathway courses that they want to take. Can you put the pathway options back up real quick? I will tell you what, those are going to be posted on the district website. So I'm not going to put them up here just yet because when those are up, I can't see the chat. But as soon as we finish this up, we will make sure that those are posted to the district website. So those will be available for you. There's a question here about the PE waiver for students in sports. How and where do we get that? Those come from Mary Beth Chamblin, our athletic secretary. So she's the one who is able to go in and check those for us and get them put in. If you send an email to Mary Beth, she can help you out with that. If you can't find Mary Beth's email address, just send it to me. I'll get it over to you and we can get it fixed up that way. What if your student wishes to change pathways? Great question. I appreciate that one. Each year when we go through this process, your student can choose a different pathway scheduling form. So if I choose ag and food science this year, and next year I say, you know what, I think I'd rather do the business pathway, then my junior year, I just grab the business pathway scheduling form and I fill that one out with my counselor. So it should be pretty straightforward and easy. I will tell you from experience, any of these things that seem that easy usually are too easy and I'm missing something. So I'm sure I'm missing something. But as we figure out what those things are, we'll fix them. But right now, that's how we've got it laid out. How many times can they pick over the years? Each year. So, I mean, each year they will have an opportunity to choose their pathway, choose the courses that they're going to take in it. Now, the one caveat to that I will tell you when you change a pathway, it's a lot like if you change majors in college, right? So you can change as many times as you like, but a lot of these courses are sequential, right? So they'll take a certain group of courses their sophomore year. And if they change pathways their junior year, they may have to go back and take those pathway courses with the sophomores, because you can't take the junior one until you've already taken the sophomore one. So there is that potential where they may have to start over on, it's not really starting over, but taking some courses with some underclassmen. Most of our students don't really have a problem with that, but if your student is a student who say, well, I only want to take senior year classes with seniors, they may not want to change pathways. Let's see here. We thought there were 13 pathways. Did I not go through 13 pathways? The last pathway is that CCP pathway, which we talked about kind of at the beginning. So I think that gets us to 13. I may be counting wrong, but I'm pretty sure that got us to 13. What about students planning on attending the Career Center? Great question, right? So you can't start at the Career Center until your junior year. So for your sophomore year, you can choose any one of the pathways, or you could choose that exploratory pathway. Any of those would be fine. You can choose your electives, take what it is that you want to take there, getting ready for yourself to go into the Career Center that following year. There's a student here, a question here, can a student choose an academy and not a pathway? I'm going to assume this might be somebody who joined us a little bit late, but no. If you remember when we went through that first slide, this is one of those changes that we made with this high school redesign. So we are no longer choosing academies. Students are all going to be choosing a pathway from here on out. Question here, I'm new to the district. What is the capstone in grade 12? So what we do with that is that first semester, our students do an internship where they're actually out at a business. I will tell you the last few years, that's been really tough with COVID going on. So hopefully we're able to pick that up and do a little bit better with that next year. But they do their internship first semester where they are working at a place of business that is aligned to their pathway. And then second semester, they develop a capstone project with their mentor that was at that site. So they'd actually be working on solving a problem for that business at that work site. And then that's what they work on for second semester, is actually solving that problem. They do a big presentation at the end where they present to parents, they present to the business, they present to their mentor. It's really cool when we are able to do it well. I will say it's been a tough thing to do the last couple of years with COVID. So I'm really hopeful that by the time this year's class gets to be seniors, hopefully, we'll be post-pandemic finally, maybe, and be able to do a little bit better with some of those things. Let's see here. Some of these are duplicates. Are the pathways being reviewed with students directly? Right now, we don't have any plans to do that in class. That is something that I can talk over though with Mr. Ragland. If that's something that parents feel strongly about, that we want to get some information out to students in class, we can work on that. One of the questions is about the bell schedules for next year. As of right now, we don't anticipate any change in those bell schedules, right? So we're still doing the AB days, the block schedules, the E&I period. I would anticipate that Summit would still be an early start, Livingston would still be a late start. Obviously, those things can change throughout the course of the year, but as of right now, I would assume that most of those things would probably be staying pretty static. Let's see here. Oh, good question here. What if a student is interested in 2 pathways right now? So again, yes, like I said, if a student is interested in 2 pathways, they'll choose one, but then they can choose electives out of those other pathways, right? So again, like I think I used ag and food science as the original example. That ag and food science pathway, I choose that. I have 1 elective my sophomore year that's aligned to that pathway. But then I have room in there for 2 other electives. So I could potentially choose something from the criminology pathway, from the business pathway. Any of those things would be courses that they could choose to take as their elective in that. So yes, students could sample 2 pathways, 3 pathways, and get some experience in multiple pathways. Good question here. My daughter wants to be a psychologist. Does the criminology pathway address that aspect without being specific to law? So yeah, I mean, I think that criminology pathway, obviously we will have the psychology and the sociology classes that are aligned to that, but those would also be electives and other pathways. So I would say your student could potentially choose to do criminology, or your student could potentially choose to do allied health and take some of the other courses as electives. So I think either one of those would be possible for your student in that particular case. So the question, this is another one of those that I think a really good question. When you turn the forms in for your pathway, are they going to be dated? And will it be first come, first serve if there's a pathway that is popular? No, because in this scenario, every student is going to get the pathway that they choose, right? The only difference here is that we may have to move a pathway from one campus to the other to make sure that we have space and resources for it. So no one should be locked out of a pathway. Everyone should be able to get the pathway that they choose. We don't anticipate there being any problems with that. But again, we may have to move a pathway from one campus to the other just to make sure that we have space and resources for that pathway. Great question here. A question about the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal and the seals for graduation. So I will tell you this. This is our last year operating under the old graduation requirements, and next year's class actually starts graduating under the new ones. Now, we've been working behind the scenes a lot with our administrators, with our counselors, making sure that these classes are in line, that they're going to meet all the things that are required for those graduation seals, okay? So don't panic. These pathways have been built with those in mind. Next year, when we are fully into these new graduation pathways, very beginning of the year, I'll do another presentation like this where we will go through all of those. We'll talk about each of the seals, how students can earn them, but I can tell you we have already started tracking those things right now. We've already started building those into the pathway, so don't panic. Okay, we are on top of that. We're taking care of that. But I think that those new graduation requirements is probably a bigger conversation than what we're going to have time for here tonight. So we'll do that as a separate presentation next year. There's a question here about when do we know which pathway is going to be at which campus? The idea is that when we send those scheduling documents out to folks on January 24th, we should know at that point in time where they're at. So you'll make that selection of your pathway first, then we'll go through, we'll use those numbers to assign where those are going to be at. Then we'll be able to tell you where they're at before you start to choose what courses you're going to take. There's a question here, can a student change in the middle of the year? Unfortunately, we can't really change in the middle of the year because what happens then is that you have to come out of a class and you have to take a withdrawal fail for that class. And so we don't really like to put failing grades on student transcripts if we don't have to. So once you choose it, you would matriculate through at least for that year. You'd be able to change them at the end of that year. A question here, what's the difference between English 1 and Comp 1? So yes, all of these things are actually explained in our course of studies. So if you're interested in taking a look at that, that is also on our district website. But basically what we've got when we take a look at our English classes, the ones that are strictly high school classes are English 9, 10, 11, and 12. So students may just go straight through on those, or they may start to take some of these Columbus State courses. So Comp 1 is the entry-level course there for the college level English, and then Comp 2 is that second course. We also have the AP options that are similar to those, so you can look at any one of those and take any of them. So here's a question. Do all the pathways except the exploratory pathway include college courses? I would tell you even the exploratory pathway includes college courses. Yes. So I mean, any student, regardless of pathway, if you want to take Comp 1, you can. If you want to take History 1151, you can. If you want to take Biology 1111, you can. So regardless of which pathway that you are choosing, there will be college course options available in any of those pathways. Yes, there are criteria to qualify for the college courses. So for 9X students, that's why we've got you taking the AccuPlacer test next week. Those AccuPlacer guidelines have been waived the last 2 years with COVID. We do not know whether or not they will be waived next year. So that's why we've got our students taking the AccuPlacer just to make sure. So they will have those scores in hand before they start to fill out their scheduling documents. So they'll have an idea about whether or not they can take them or not. There's a question here about what's the difference between pathways and the courses that you take at the Career Center at the Eastland Fairfield. There's not really a whole lot of difference, right? So some of our pathways here are CTE pathways. All of the pathways at the Career Center are CTE pathways. Okay, so that's one difference. But there are college courses that are available in both, right? So you can take college courses at the Career Center. You can take college courses if you stay in our pathways. So those are available for both. Councils, is there anything else that I'm missing? I mean, to me, I think they're both pretty similar ideas, correct? I see nodding. Okay, good, good. Again, a question here, what if a student doesn't know what pathway to choose? I would say to choose that exploratory pathway. That gives you an option to take classes in multiple pathways and explore multiple opportunities. There's a question here, is the school going to help with internship selection? Absolutely. So we are always working to develop partnerships with different internships to be able to get our students out to. So yes, that is not something that our students have to go into and kind of go out and do cold calls and figure that all out on their own. But we'll work with the student to help get placements for internship. A good question here, what if I want to go to Summit Campus next year? I can't promise you you're going to Summit Campus next year. You're going to choose a pathway, and then we'll have to assign that pathway to a specific campus. So at this point, you cannot just choose a campus, which is why I'm saying it's so important to make sure that you are choosing the pathway that has courses in it that are going to be of interest to you. How will the Career Center affect the student's pathway if they're selected to go to the Career Center? Once they go to the Career Center, then they go ahead and they move on to the coursework there for the Career Center. So they're no longer held to those pathway courses for us at that point. They're just going ahead and taking what their pathway courses are. Here's a good question here. Somebody said that they're a military family. They may have to relocate next year. Just in case we do stay one more year, should we still do this selection? Yes, please. We want to make sure that we have whatever it is that your student is interested in, reserved for them, a space for them in that, so that if you are here, we've got that all set up. Okay, and I hope you are here. A question here, is there a more complete description of the pathways and all the courses? Yes. So like I said, we do have our course of studies that is located right now online. So you can pull that up and we have course descriptions for each of those courses there. A question here that says, would we still be switching buildings depending on our pathways or based on grade over the years? So like I said early on, that's not our goal, right? We fully understand that we want to have stability, right? We want our students to be able to be in one building or the other for 3 full years. We want our teachers to have stability. So it is not our goal to be swapping pathways back and forth willy-nilly, right? We're going to try and keep those things in the same place as much as possible. But like I said, that's really dependent on space and resources. So if we have to move one, we would move one. But again, not our goal. We want to try and have as much stability as possible, but there is a possibility for movement. We want everyone to understand that. Let's see here. Oh, this is a good one. If they choose a college credit course sophomore year, would that be off campus within their chosen pathway? No, we've tried to be really specific about those sophomore year courses, those college ones that they take will be located on our campus. So this is not a course where you're going to have to drive to it. The only courses that we end up doing like that are their junior and senior year. Once we have more students who are able to drive and get off campus and do those sort of things, there'll be more options to do that at that point. Should students interested in veterinary medicine take allied health? Yes, I think that would be their best bet for that one. The other one that they could potentially take a look at would be that energy pathway, because again, if you've got that AP Bio, the AP Chem, you can start to knock out some of those college credits that are going to be the core requirements for any of those sort of medical pathways. So that one could be looked at as well. If you're interested in law, but not criminal law, what pathway would you take? Again, I think your best bet there is that criminology pathway. I've got a question here. Can they switch if they do not like, can they switch pathways if they do not like where their pathway is located? I am going to say I don't believe that we will be able to make switches like that. Dr. Casgrave, is that one that you would want to weigh in on, so I don't misspeak on that?
Hi, everyone. I do think it is all just going to depend on enrollment and numbers. Like we talked about earlier, we would never want a student to end up with a withdrawal fail on their transcript. Even when we were selecting academies, we really didn't do academy transfers mid-year unless it was a very extenuating circumstance. So these pathways are similar, where we are asking for a year commitment because that's how we build our staffing, our scheduling, and our space planning. But then, of course, if they would like to switch the following year, they could do that for sure.
I appreciate it. Thank you, ma'am. We've got a question here. Can a student take courses at both campuses since they're starting at different times? Yes. So like I said, we're still going to have those shuttle buses that run back and forth. There will be students that may start with their E&I on the Summit campus and then take the rest of their courses that day on the Livingston campus. We may have students who take all their classes on the Summit campus and then go over for E&I to the Livingston campus to take the course. So yes, that is definitely a possibility. There's a question here. Will the course of studies show what all classes, electives you can take under a pathway? That course of studies shows all of the courses that we offer at both campuses, right? Where you'll actually be able to see the electives that are associated with your particular pathway is when we send out those scheduling documents, okay? Because that's really going to be specific to where we end up placing that particular pathway. So you'll have more information about that when you get those scheduling, the course request documents. Question here, do students have to take high school English if they take comp? No, comp 1 counts for both a college credit and a high school credit. So those, we call those things dual credit courses. So the same thing if you were taking the History 1151. If you take that, you're not required to take the American History course. It counts for both your high school and your college credit. I've got a good question here that I don't know an answer to, so I'm going to ask our counselors. Can students still sign up for the AccuPlacer exams?
Yeah, for this year?
Yes.
Yeah, the freshmen will be all taking it next week, January. As long as they filled out the application, but there should still be time to add them to it if they fill it out by the end of this week. Does that sound right, Ms. Leonard?
I think so. I think we set the deadline for last week, but we can always, if it's only a couple kids, we can always work on getting them added, I would assume.
Yeah, we'll do everything we can to make sure that every student who wants to be able to sit for that test and have an opportunity to take college classes gets an opportunity to.
And if students can't test with us, they can always test with Columbus State, and we can get information out to them that way as well.
Barbara, I see that you have a question on here about the AEP high school workforce development program. I do not know an answer to that. I think that one's going to be a little bit more specific. So if you can send me that in an email, I will do some research on that question. I will find you an answer for that. There's a question, can you take classes at the Career Center and as well at Reynoldsburg? Yes. We have a lot of programs at the Career Center that are only half day, where they may be meeting in the afternoon or in the morning. And then our students are at the Career Center half day and back in our building half day. So that is very possible. We got a question here. What would be the best choice for a psychology interest? Again, I would think that you would probably look at either the criminology pathway or the allied health pathway. I think those would probably be your two best bets for that. A question here that is specific to broadcasting or journalism, right? Which pathway would be the best one for that? I think that any of the pathways can work really well for that, because you'll have the opportunity to start taking the Comp 1 and Comp 2. I really think a pathway like that is probably something we would look at as being a CCP pathway that we would help your student develop and get them off campus to take some classes. Because you're right, we don't have a whole lot of classes that are aligned specifically to those careers, but I think that we can do that pretty easily, getting them into some CCP classes at some different universities. A question here, are all 9th grade students taking the AccuPlacer? They had to sign up for that. So again, we've sent out a few reminder emails about that and getting folks signed up. I will ask our English teachers to do one last push on that, but we're trying to make sure that we've got all those things out there. Will Chinese or other foreign languages be available at both campuses? So right now our Chinese classes meet in the morning at the Summit campus, but because that's during E&I, students from either campus can take those classes and be able to be transferred back and forth. And then we do have Spanish and French at both campuses. Question here that says, when did you say that the pathways would be available on the website? I will do my level best to get those on here tonight. I'll work with Valerie and see if we can't knock that out, but we'll try and get those posted here as soon as we possibly can. A question here, if you choose the exploratory pathway, would it be a possibility that you could have classes at different buildings? I think in any of the pathways, there's that potential that you could have classes at different buildings. You may choose to take marching band, right, which is over at the Livingston campus in the afternoons. If you're doing that, but your pathway is at the Summit campus, then you would be in classes all day long at Summit. Then you would be bussed over to Livingston for marching band. So yeah, I mean, I think that no matter which pathway you choose, there are going to be electives that are offered on one campus or the other during that E&I time, and you will have opportunities to take courses on both of them. Question here, my son is interested in forensic science. Which pathway is best for him? I think allied health is the perfect one for forensic science. Mrs. Schaefer, good point here. There's been a lot of CCP questions. We do have a CCP night that's coming up in February, okay? And you'll get information about that. So again, you will have an opportunity for you to come in and ask a lot of those questions there and hopefully get a lot of answers to that at that point as well. How do they apply for AccuPlacer? Again, I will ask our English teachers to resend that one more time tomorrow. Keep an eye on your email and we'll get all that information out to you, and we'll try and do one more push for that. There's a question here about, understanding about AccuPlacer. So again, AccuPlacer, once you have passed it and you've gotten a 5 or better on it, it's good for the next 3 years. So you don't ever have to take it again. If you choose not to take it this year, and then you choose to take it your sophomore year, you're allowed to do that. So again, you could test your sophomore year, so you could try and take college classes your junior year, and that's fine too. But what we found is that most of our students who take that AccuPlacer test usually tend to do pretty well on it their freshman year. So I think if you've got a freshman who has any interest whatsoever in potentially taking college classes, I would encourage you to get signed up for the AccuPlacer test and make sure that you're taking it. It doesn't mean that you have to take college classes, but I will tell you that there is the possibility that if you don't take that test, you won't even have that opportunity available to you. So I think it's a good idea to take it. A question about what is offered at the Career Center. I'd have to refer you to the Career Center's website for that. They have a ton of different programs that I would not possibly be able to rattle off the top of my head here. A question here, if a student is already accepted to Columbus State, do they have to take the AccuPlacer? I see nodding from our counselors.
Yeah, they still have to test even though they're accepted. So getting accepted is not the same as being able to take classes. They still have to take the AccuPlacer in order to test into comp or history or anything like that.
I've got a question here specifically about philosophy courses. No, we don't have any philosophy courses at the moment. But again, that wouldn't mean that your junior or senior year that you wouldn't be able to take a philosophy course through one of our colleges through the CCP. A question here, is transportation available to get students to college campuses? Unfortunately not. We don't transport to the college campuses. So I think CCP is an amazing tool. But if you want to, so again, it's available at any of the public colleges here in the state of Ohio. But yes, if you want to take classes at Otterbein, if you want to take classes at Ohio State, we have students taking classes on those campuses, but you have to be able to drive yourself to those ones. There's a question here that says, I'm confused about the AccuPlacer because aren't some of the CCP classes required? So in those, there's only a couple of pathways where we need AccuPlacer tests for that pathway. So like our early childhood education is one of those, right? Our students do have to take the AccuPlacer to be able to take the Columbus State courses that are associated with that. However, when we look at our DMD and our digital pathway, we actually have waivers on file with the state where we have students that are allowed to take those courses without having taken AccuPlacer. So we look for opportunities for that, and we'll continue to look for opportunities where we can get waivers and work with our college partners on that. But no, not every pathway has courses that are going to be required to take the AccuPlacer because of that. Oh, here's a good one. So what would be the best pathway for the space program? We don't have anything that's specific to a space program. So again, I think that would be one of those things that you might want to look at your exploratory pathway for your sophomore year, and then look at doing a CCP pathway your junior and senior year when you're able to travel and get yourself onto a campus that would be specific to that. A question here, I already took the AccuPlacer and passed it, so would I have to take it again? No. Once you've got that score of a 5 or better, you are all set. What if a student fails the AccuPlacer? You are able to take it multiple times. Again, we don't want you having to take it multiple times, so please don't blow it off, but come in, do your best on it, and we believe you'll do well on it. But if you need an opportunity to take it again, we can help get you set up with that as well.
Can I interject there real quick?
Yes,
Scott?
ma'am.
They can only take it twice in one school year.
Twice in one school year, I'm sorry. Yep.
Yep.
A question here about, so again, the question here says, my student had a waiver last year based on grade point average to start CSCC classes, so I'm confused. Yes, due to COVID, our college partners waived AccuPlacer each of the last 2 years. So you didn't need a specific score on the AccuPlacer. If you had a high enough GPA, you were able to go on and take those CCP courses. Our college partners have not committed to that yet for next year. We don't know if because the pandemic is still going on, that they're still going to waive AccuPlacer. That's possible. But we don't want to take that risk and then have students who end up not being able to take the courses. So that's why we're asking our students to take the AccuPlacer, just so that we know that they have that opportunity. If we find out that it's waived, so much the better, right? That just opens it up to even more students. But until we find that out for sure, I would recommend taking the AccuPlacer just to be safe. A question here, can you do a CCP pathway your sophomore year? Yes. We have had sophomores. A few years ago, we had a sophomore who actually started their entire sophomore year on Otterbein's campus and did a full 3 years there. That is possible. I will tell you, as a principal and as a father, I would not recommend that. I think putting a sophomore student fully on a college campus, there's a lot of social issues that can potentially come up with that. So I'm not going to tell you no. I'm not going to tell you that you can't. If that's something that you're interested for your kid, we'll work with you on that, but I would caution you about that one. Sometimes discretion is the better part of valor, and you may want to wait a year on that. But again, you know your kid a whole lot better than I do, and we will work with you on whatever it is that you want to see for your child. The AccuPlacer. So what is on the AccuPlacer? I believe that is a reading and writing test. Is that accurate? Yep, I see nodding from them. So yes. And with that, I have actually reached the bottom of the questions. So if you have any other questions, let's get them in now. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and get everybody out tonight. Is there a math AccuPlacer? Yes. So if you're interested in taking a college math class next year, talk to your counselor. We can get you set up with that one. That is not actually on AccuPlacer. It's actually on Alex, and we can get you in there for that. We don't usually have a lot of students who request that one, so we don't usually put it out there a whole lot. But if you're interested in it, we can get it for you. I see somebody here saying that they are not seeing the course catalog. Again, we don't have next year's course catalog available. It is this current year's course catalog. So you're looking for the 21-22 course catalog. That one is on the district website. Once our updated course catalog has been board approved, we'll get that one uploaded too. And that should be, I believe, Jocelyn, in the next couple of months, correct?
Actually, it is on for discussion this month with approval next month. So people will be able to at least see a draft of it to use as reference, knowing that we do need to wait on board approval before it's official.
Fantastic. And again, there was another question here about the grad requirements. And like I said, I will go over all those with everyone at a later date. We're not going to get into all the grad requirements tonight. A question here, you mentioned allied health to take forensic science interest. Why wouldn't it be criminology? Criminology does have a forensic science course in it. I'm not saying that you couldn't do that one. I think either one of those would probably be really good for that. Okay, I will tell you now, if you feel like you've gotten all your questions answered, go ahead and log off. I will stay on here for another few minutes just in case any other last minute questions come up. I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. I know it's a lot of information. I really appreciate you taking time out of your evening to get all this. Thank you and have a good night.